Let's move on to the big story of the day, the one that's setting the news agenda this week, which is the revelation over the weekend that the man who's just been sacked as head of the post office claims that he was told to go slow on compensation to those postmasters and postmistresses who were wrongly accused of theft after the Horizon computers in each branch totted up the day's takings wrongly. Now, Kevin, can you take us through this bit? Let's start at the beginning. What's this guy? He's called Henry Staunton. What's he saying exactly?
He was the chief executive of the post office. Used to be a W.H. Smith. He's one of those city bods who go around picking up jobs. He claims he was fired by Kemi Badenoch, the business secretary, and he says he was asked to carry the can for the delays over the compensation scheme to postmasters, postmistresses over that Fujitsu post office Horizon IT scandal. But he'd been told by someone very senior, a civil servant, to go slow and limp to the election, so all the money isn't paid this side of the election. Now, Kemi Badenoch, who rang him up and sacked him a few Saturdays ago, says he's totally misrepresented what happened. She has a record of the call she made. An official was listening in, and he's told a pack of lies. She did all this on X, formerly Twitter. She can be a bit overeager.
Yeah, there she is. There's the tweet. So I'll read it out for the benefit of the podcast. She says, "My call with Staunton was with officials. They took a complete record. He's given an interview full of lies about our conversation during his dismissal. The details will emerge soon enough, as I won't let the matter rest here, and I'm talking to government lawyers." Now, what's interesting about this, was completely mad, is in Henry Staunton's interview, which was given with the Sunday Times, he didn't mention Kemi Badenoch once.
No. Well,
his conversation was with an official. An official told me, didn't name that person, didn't blame that person, didn't say what department they were in. And Kemi Badenoch says, he's told a pack of lies about me.
Yeah, well, she's gone for the dismissal interview. That's the pack of lies, totally misrepresented. Not the bigger issue, which I think affects postmasters, postmistresses, and we'll all be more concerned in, is whether or not he was told to go slow on the compensation. That is the key bit, dare I say it, the killer bit, not where exactly why she sacked him and what she said. And I wasn't impressed by Henry Staunton, what I've seen and heard. I must admit, but I know Kemi Badenoch can be a bit fast and loose at times. I mean, she's still hailing Brexit a great success and pretending the trade deals she's struck or have been struck have been good, including with New Zealand and Australia, which the former Environment Secretary George Eustace said were one-sided and weren't good for British farming. But anyway, coming back to the post office, she's going to make a statement in the Commons today. So it's going to be she said, he said, but what evidence is there? I think he's got to put up a shut up and give us far more detail on what he claims he was told to do. And she's got to answer questions, because at the moment she seems to have left most of the post office to her junior, the post office minister, Kevin Hollinrake, who admitted that really the government didn't pull its finger out and get going until Mr. Bates versus the post office lit public opinion up and created such a huge backlash. So the government has been slow, but was the head deliberately told that? Was that the case, or was it just an institution and its bureaucracy dragging its feet and not wanting to admit liability any more than it had to, and not wanting to pay too much money out?
What do you think, everybody? Do you think this is the kind of thing? Is this what you expected perhaps to happen? Are you surprised by this? Do you want Henry Staunton to stop naming who said what when? Or do you think that the civil servant who, if someone did say this, they're just doing what they're told to by a minister, so they're kind of fairly innocent? Maybe it's the minister who should be named and shamed and have to answer some questions. What would you like to happen? And what's the postmaster's response, Kevin? Because these are people like Alan Bates, recently lionised by that ITV drama, who led the battle of thousands of ordinary men and women who took on a government-owned service after they'd basically been ground to dust by the machinery of the state, wrongly prosecuted, wrongly convicted. I mean, they are I assume, not that surprised that the state is still apparently unwilling to deal fairly with them.
No, and they're starting to turn against the UK Conservative government. Now, of course, the Tories had electoral interest in going after Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, who was the Post Office Minister at the start of the coalition government, the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition in 2010, and dragged his feet over meeting Alan Bates, or he did meet him in the end, First Minister, who did. But they're turning against the Tories now, and the Mirror's got quoting Michael Radkin, whose wife was wrongly convicted, saying the government needs to be punished at the ballot box. We're now 24 years on. How long is this going to take? Inside the Mirror, there is a former postmaster, Christopher Head. He was Britain's youngest sub-postmaster when he took over a branch in West Bolden near Sunderland. I know the place well. Who said he's always voted Tory, but he won't anymore, because it's so much of this is occurring on this government's watch. The slowness in terms of giving justice to the wrongly convicted and giving them compensation. And Badenoch can't just sweep that away. She might have this dispute with Henry Staunton. They may both be at fault to some extent, but she hasn't got completely clean hands on this.
No. So that ITV drama basically caused the government to start acting finally on this scandal, basically because it became an electoral issue. And here we have a situation where now it's becoming an electoral issue because it's coming closer and closer to an election, that they haven't paid these compensations. Mike says, if this is true, she could, of course, arrange the payments immediately. She could just go pay the cash. Now, there is a reason, isn't there, that's about all of this. We've got, we know the government's response, or Kemi's response, which is, I fired him for not getting a grip on this. So that's why he got fired, because he wasn't sorting this out. So you can't, now to accuse me of not sorting out is astonishing. And we've also got, but though, other situations which are exactly the same problem. So the infected blood inquiry, which has a multi-billion-pound bill. The chair of that inquiry has ordered the government to pay £100,000 a head interim compensation, never mind more on top. And that's not happened. Now, he's called the Chancellor and the former Chancellor to give evidence, and it's still not happened. You've got the WASPy women whose pensions were delayed and are due some kind of compensation. They've not been paid out. You've got the nuclear veterans with their nuke blood scandal, which is starting a legal case. And the minister said, if you have evidence, you need to sue us. You've got RAC that hasn't been properly funded and paid for out of schools, war pensions everywhere that haven't been sort of paid to people. Leslie says, I'm not surprised in the slightest bit. We're pretty used to this form of underhand behaviour. It's a delayed tactic in itself. I wrote about this a little while ago, Kev, because it started to look like to me that there was a deliberate political choice not to pay compensation now and to kick it into the long grass, because at some point Labour were going to win. And then after that point, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, who's quite conservative in her dealing with financial matters, conservative with a small c, would have to pay billions, billions to people. All those people, never mind all the other scandals that I haven't mentioned, like Orgreave and Hillsborough and Grenfell. And they've got a massive bill and they're just not going to be able to do it to some extent.
No, you're right. No.
Being cynical, is it a political choice?
No, the checks are all going to come due when Labour are in power, assuming they win the general election, which looks pretty certain at the moment. They're going to be picking up the tab, and as you say, it's going to be billions. It's just how many billions? And it does feel, as the government is looking to squeeze spending, find some money for tax cuts, or just invent it. It doesn't really care about borrowing anymore, this government. I mean, it's so much debt is so much higher than what it inherited from Labour in 2010. But no, it does feel like a policy. But when you were talking there, I also noticed in Badenoch's Twitter torrent, she also says the chair Henry Staunton was there were very serious allegations about his conduct, including blocking an investigation into that conduct. Well, what was that? Well, it sounds like a serious allegation from Kemi Badenoch. She's going to have to put up or shut up on that.
Yeah. Now, HC on Twitter says, as far as the infected blood compensation not being, it should be in the budget that we're expecting next month. Without that, more victims will die waiting, and a £5 to £20 billion hole will be left in the country's finances based on HM Treasury leaks to the FT. There is a mass lobby in Parliament on the 28th of this month calling for the infected blood money to be in the budget. Lindsay says standards in government have been flushed down the toilet during the past 11 years. So what happens next with this story then, Kev? We've got Henry Staunton saying, I was told to go slow. You've got Kemi Badenoch saying, I sacked him because he was useless. You've got an inquiry which is looking into what went wrong at the time, so isn't maybe going to can't really call him because he was chief executive well after what went wrong. So could he, for example, be called to a select committee?
He could.
Because it's presumably just a chat he had with someone. It was all oral. There's no record of it. Yeah. So he's going to have to give evidence under oath to make it look like.
Yeah. Well, if she gets up in the House of Commons today and gives her side and makes a whole series of allegations, he's going to have to respond. And you can either do that in a series of interviews, or, as you say, you could be recalled by a committee. The business committee had a very good day when it had people from all sides in this scandal involving Fujitsu and the post office and all the victims. They could have another session and call Badenoch and call him. Yeah, have one after the other. Or I'd quite like them both together. I quite like a head-to-head, somebody in between to try and keep some order. I mean, because look, the truth is out there, but will we ever get it?
That's the point, isn't it? We need to know actually what's happened here, and if an official has said something or done something which perhaps isn't quite what they should have done or said, who given the original instruction and so on. If Kemi, just go through a little bit the rules for us. If Kemi makes a statement to Parliament, is that just a statement? I mean, obviously there are rules about telling the truth in Parliament and misleading Parliament and so on, penalties for it. But is she going to get questions from the House, or does she just make a statement and sit down and that's that?
No, she'd get questions. Yeah, she could issue. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because she said she was consulting the department's lawyers. The department's lawyers will have had.
Please write my statement for me.
They will have had kittens over what she was putting on Twitter, saying a pack of lies and so on. That's not how lawyers like a Secretary of State to speak.
They don't like anyone to speak like that. Lawyers like to check everything with them.
So she could issue a written statement. She could give some media interviews, or she stands up in the Commons, which this morning is what we were led to believe, but we won't know until later today whether that's the case. Then she will get questions from MPs. But will they have all the facts? You need Henry Staunton's version, Kemi Badenoch's version, and then you sort of mix it and put it all together. Then you ask questions based on that, and then you make your mind up. It comes down to who do you believe?
Yeah, but you've really got to be able to draw the lines from one to the other, and sometimes just have it printed out in front of you to go, well, where's the gaps here where they're not addressing what the other person says?
I mean, let's be honest. Both have got are self-interested, and it's. May just see facts selectively, may interpret them in ways you wouldn't agree, but you want to see it all. So my preference would be a head-to-head, an hour-long Badenoch v Staunton post office thon. You can adjudicate.
Well, Alan Bates is referee.
Yeah, get out. Oh God, wouldn't that? There we are. You've got it now. Alan Bates grilling the pair of them, having them sat side by side.
Yeah,
that's what we'd want, because he knows more about this than anybody else. So they could wriggle and they can squirm, but they wouldn't get off the hook with him.
No, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Just about any postmaster or postmistress, I would imagine, would do a fantastic job.
They'd be the audience, and they could come in with supplementary questions.
There you go. There you go. So idea of any question time producers, if you're watching this week, that's what we want. Alan, get rid of Fiona Bruce. Alan Bates this week in the chair. Kemi on one side, Henry on the other. Let them go. Just let them go.
Yeah. All behaviour accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Right, well, I suspect that's going to obviously just rule the roost for at least the first part of the week, if not the rest of it, probably. So if Kemi stand up and speaks today, if she gets time to speak today, then there'll be questions, then there'll be her sort of unscripted responses to those questions, and then everyone's going to start picking through the sweet corn and trying to find out what else is there. And then by Thursday, we're going to have a whole different version of events, I expect. So it's going to run and run and run, this story, and I suspect if we do have a sooner election, then it may actually become an issue in that election as well. Who knows as to who's going to pay how much compensation and when. Can Labour commit to paying all this compensation? If they can't commit to a green project, how are they going to commit to the billions all these compensation schemes are going to cost them?